The Falklands sit about 500 kilometers east of Argentina's southern coast and 1,200 kilometers north of Antarctica. On a map, they look like they've been scattered across the ocean by some giant careless hand. An archipelago of around 776 islands in total. Two of these, East Falkland and West Falkland, dominate the picture, while the rest range from rocky outcrops to larger islands supporting farms, wildlife reserves, and a few hardy communities. Together, the islands cover 12,000 square kilometers, about the same as Northern Ireland or Connecticut. In other words, they're far larger than most people imagine. But size doesn't make them hospitable. The landscape is rugged, scarred with low mountains and endless hills. The highest peak, Mount Usborne, rises to just 705 meters, but the terrain feels wilder than its elevation suggests. The islands are lashed by the roaring 40s, powerful westerly winds that whip across the southern oceans. These winds shape everything here, from the stunted grasses to the architecture. Houses are low, sturdy, and often brightly painted, standing out against the gray skies like Lego blocks. Trees, almost non-existent. The soil is wet, acidic, and peaty, making forests impossible. What grows best are hardy grasses and shrubs, which just so happen to be perfect for sheep. A land more fit for sheep than people. If the Falklands were designed for anyone, it wasn't humans. It was sheep. Today, sheep outnumber humans by more than 130 to 1. That makes New Zealand look like a bustling metropolis of people in comparison. For over a century, wool was the backbone of the Falklands economy. Generations of islanders have worked the land in near isolation, living in remote settlements known as camps, short for the Spanish word campo, meaning countryside. But while wool kept the islands afloat for decades, it wasn't enough to make them wealthy. That came later, from the sea. Riches in the water. The Falklands command an exclusive economic zone, EEZ, stretching 200 nautical miles out to sea. These cold South Atlantic waters are astonishingly productive, home to huge populations of squid, fish, and other marine life. Squid alone, exported mostly to Spain and Asia, has transformed the island's fortunes. Since the 1980s, fishing has overtaken wool as the economic engine of the Falklands, funding new schools, healthcare, and infrastructure. There's also the tantalizing possibility of oil offshore, though exploration has been controversial and politically fraught. Still, the islands today are far wealthier than their population suggests, with a per capita GDP higher than many European countries. And yet, life isn't all comfort and prosperity. Isolation imposes its own costs. Isolation as a way of life. Step outside Stanley, the capital and only real town, and you quickly realize just how sparse human settlement is. The rest of the archipelago consists of small farms and outposts scattered across vast distances. Roads? Few and far between. Until the late 20th century, many settlements weren't even connected by land routes. People relied on boats, small planes, or rugged Land Rovers bumping over trackless countryside. Even today, many places are only reachable by air through the government-operated FIGA service, tiny planes that act as flying buses, dropping off passengers at grass airstrips across the islands. In winter, isolation deepens. The days grow short, the skies gray, and travel becomes more treacherous. Yet for the people who live here, that isolation isn't just a hardship. It's part of the appeal. Life is slower, quieter, and more tightly bound to community. A stage for empires. Here's the thing about the Falklands. Unlike most colonized places, there were no indigenous peoples here before Europeans arrived. That made the islands a blank canvas, but also a magnet for rival colonial powers. The first sighting is debated. Some credit Portuguese sailors in the early 1500s, Others suggest Spanish or even English navigators. But the first recorded landing came in 1690, when English Captain John Strong sailed through the channel between the two main islands. He named it the Falkland Sound after Viscount Falkland. Over time, that name extended to the whole archipelago. Then the scramble began. 1764, France founded a colony at Port Louis on East Falkland. 1765, Britain unknowingly established its own settlement at Port Egmont on West Falkland. 1767, Spain took over the French settlement, renamed it Puerto Soledad, and clashed with Britain. By 1774, Britain withdrew due to cost pressures, though it never formally renounced its claim. Spain held on until 1811, then abandoned the islands. That left a vacuum, which the new state of Argentina tried to fill. In 1829, Buenos Aires appointed Luis Vernet as governor. But after Vernet seized American sealing ships, the U.S. Navy destroyed his settlement. In 1833, Britain returned, expelled the remaining Argentine garrison, and re-established control. From then on, the Falklands were a small but firm outpost of the British Empire. Settlers, many from Scotland, built sheep farms and maritime industries, creating the cultural backbone still felt today. The war that put the Falklands on the map fast forward to 1982. Argentina's ruling military junta, desperate to stir up nationalism at home, invaded the islands. For most of the world, it was the first time they'd even heard of the Falklands, or the Islas Malvinas, as Argentina calls them. Britain, led by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, responded with a massive naval task force sent 8,000 miles south. The result was the Falklands War, a brutal 10-week conflict fought in bitter conditions. By the end, 649 Argentines and 255 British personnel had been killed. Argentina surrendered and British control was reasserted. The war left deep marks. For Argentina, it was a national trauma and helped topple the dictatorship. For Britain, it was a resurgence of pride. And for the Falklanders themselves, it was transformative. They realized just how precarious their situation was, and just how fiercely they wanted to remain British. A modern mini-nation. Since 1982, the Falklands have modernized rapidly. Fishing revenue poured in, infrastructure improved, and the population stabilized. The Mount Pleasant military base, built after the war, ensured Britain's continued defense of the islands while also injecting money into the local economy. Today, life in Stanley feels like a strange hybrid. Part Scottish fishing town, part military outpost, part Antarctic frontier hub. There are pubs serving fish and chips, shops selling wool sweaters, and even a small museum chronicling the island's turbulent history. Crime is virtually non-existent. In fact, there hasn't been a reported murder in over 30 years. Healthcare is solid, wages are high, and education is strong. In 2013, a referendum saw 99.8% of voters choose to remain British, and yet Argentina still claims the islands, keeping geopolitics alive in everyday life. Wildlife, the true locals. If humans are few here, wildlife is abundant. The Falklands are home to millions of seabirds, albatrosses with 3-meter wingspans, comical rockhopper penguins, and graceful king penguins that look like they wandered in from Antarctica. Sea lions, elephant seals, and dolphins crowd the coasts. Whales pass by offshore on their long migrations. Tourists, drawn by this wildlife spectacle, have become another pillar of the economy. Cruise ships stop here en route to Antarctica, disgorging passengers eager to snap photos of penguins and windswept cliffs. The island's environment is fragile, though. Conservation is a constant challenge, balancing economic growth with protecting the habitats that make the Falklands so unique. Why you can't just move here now? Let's get to the heart of the matter. Why can't you, or any other Brit, just move to the Falklands? On paper, it seems logical. The islands are vast, the population is tiny, and the economy is strong. Shouldn't they want more people? The reality is more complicated. The Falklands have one of the strictest immigration systems in the world. To move here, you need a work permit, and those are only granted for jobs considered essential. Employers must prove no local can fill the role. Teachers, doctors, engineers, and farm workers are in demand. But even then, residency isn't guaranteed. Why so strict? Two reasons: resources and politics. Resources are limited. Healthcare, housing, and transport can only support so many people. In the 1990s, the population grew by 50% in a decade, straining the system. The government decided never again. Growth must be slow and sustainable. Politics are delicate. Argentina still claims the islands. Islanders overwhelmingly identify as British, and they fear that large-scale immigration, whether from Argentina, Britain, or elsewhere, could dilute their identity or invite geopolitical risks. So while the islands need skilled workers, they're careful to maintain a balance. Enough newcomers to keep the economy running, but not so many that the character of the community changes. The Falklands today, a delicate dance. Life in the Falklands is a paradox. It's isolated, yet globally significant. Harsh, yet wealthy. Small, yet politically complicated. For those who live here, the reward is a rare kind of existence: safety, community, and the raw beauty of an untamed landscape. Islanders speak proudly of their resilience. They fish, farm, and look after one another. They celebrate with sheepdog trials, local fairs, and community gatherings that matter more here than in any big city. It's not an easy life, but for those who choose it, it's deeply fulfilling. Conclusion: the frontier spirit. So why live here? Because the Falkland Islands aren't just another territory. They're a frontier, a place where history, geography, and politics collide at the edge of the world. And why not let everyone else in? Because that frontier identity is fragile. Islanders guard it carefully, knowing that once lost, it could never be rebuilt. For now, the Falklands remain what they've always been: a windswept archipelago where sheep outnumber people, penguins outnumber sheep, and community outshines isolation. A place that is harsh, beautiful, and, above all, utterly unique.